Hello, I'm Tara Brabazon. I'm the Dean of Graduate Research at Flinders University, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to Vlog 34, Predatory Publishers. And this is part of our publication suite that we're developing for our early career researchers and our PhD students at Flinders University. And this session this week is paired with our session last week on the open access movement. And indeed, part of the project of the vlog this week is to separate predatory publishers and the open access movement. At the moment, those two phrases are locked in a deadly embrace. And so I intend to stop that deadly embrace today. So this vlog, I want to commence with a couple of stories, if I can, and also report on a research report. But let me start with those stories. I recently worked with a professor who was sourced from Canada, and whatever meeting we would go into, whatever topic was being discussed, she would mention the word predatory publishers and predatory publishing. So it got to such a crazy point that my mates and I would go into a meeting that we knew she would be in, and we would place bets on how many minutes of the meeting would progress before the phrase predatory publishers started to emerge. It became like an academic form of Tourette's. And so whatever topic, baked beans, breakfast, would you like a cup of coffee, whatever topic came up, predatory publishers would suddenly emerge. Oh, how we laughed. And while that was actually quite funny, it became quite serious in one research meeting, where she decided, it appeared independently, that she was going to create policy for our PhD students to discourage them from publishing with open access publishers because, and you know it's coming, they are predatory. Now, I'd been really patient. I'd laughed, but I'd been really patient. But when there was a sense that our PhD students were being threatened, their future, their career, they were being given bad advice, I intervened, and I intervened incredibly quickly. Because if a PhD student does not grasp what the open access movement is and its power and its importance, their career is over. So the idea that the supposedly senior researcher was offering this type of advice made me a bit bonkers. So I made sure that the research committee voted this woman down. The committee expressed their support and encouragement for PhD students operating in the open access environment, and we funded an information literacy program so that PhD students would know the best open access publications to select for their research. Okay, so that's one story. Cut to a couple of years later, when I'm in my current post. And in fact, I was delivering that keynote in Prague that I was delivering a few weeks ago. And my presentation there, my keynote address, was about the importance of information literacy to enable citizenship and ensure an inclusive democracy. I'm pretty proud of it. It was a wonderful conference, and I was very proud of the paper that I delivered. And in this 50-minute address, 2 sentences, about 15 seconds, mentioned the open access movement and its importance for democracy. And needless to say, a question emerged during question time from those 2 sentences from a US-based publisher in the commercial publishing industries. So she stood up and asked me a question, and she stated, quote, "How could I support the open access movement because there is so much predatory publication out there," end of quote. Now, I replied to her that what she just stated was the equivalent of saying everybody should stop having sex immediately because you could get a venereal disease. Now, the overwhelming majority of sex and sexuality is fabulous, extraordinary, remarkable, brilliant. The overwhelming majority of open access publishing is brilliant, remarkable, fabulous, exciting, joyous, buoyant, and democratic. So it seems profoundly ridiculous to me that we are summoning folk devils, vested interests, and corporate publications as if this is the norm. This is what we should be talking about. This is Folk Devil 101. So there's the two stories I wanted to share with you today. But remember I said I also wanted to share with you a really important report and its findings. In 2009, the British Library and JISC, the Joint Information Systems Committee, commissioned a 3-year report that they titled The Researchers of Tomorrow. That is, you guys. This study investigated the information-seeking behaviour of PhD students in what they called Generation Y. So that is the men and women born between 1982 and 1994. In this study, they investigated 17,000 PhD students at 70 higher education institutions. So this isn't a minoritarian quoll study. Now, a lot of the people watching this vlog are actually in this age group of Generation Y, so you might find some real resonance here. But the challenges revealed in this study, and these challenges were seen in all subject disciplines, from the hard sciences right through to the high humanities, were that PhD students were inevitably moving in their research to secondary sources, refereed articles, and books, and sometimes textbooks, instead of looking at primary sources. So that meant that doctoral students in the humanities and the social sciences were not looking at newspapers or magazines or archival material, social data sets. In the sciences, very few big data sets were being activated to enable a meta-analysis. So this was really, really serious. Bottom line, what they discovered is the researchers of the future, the researchers of tomorrow, are moving from primary sources to secondary sources. Now, this has a huge impact on higher education that we're only going to understand really in the long term. Basically, what is happening to our research apprenticeship if we're not giving you the skills to work with primary data sets. Now, that's a separate issue we're going to talk about in another vlog, I think. But the study also showed profoundly troubling results when they looked at how you guys engaged with journals, particularly e-journals. So what they showed was PhD students knew nothing about open access research, knew nothing about it at all. What happened was you guys, PhD students, are referring almost inevitably to commercial e-journals. Commercial e-journals. So that's what you're looking at, subscription-based journals, because you lack any understanding of what the open access movement actually is about. And unbelievably, and this is the bit that keeps me awake at night, students confirmed that if they could not access the full article from the commercial publishers, they would make do with the abstract. Now think about the consequences on doctoral education if generations of PhD students are making do with an abstract rather than actually reading the research. Most of you know I took this current job because I believed we needed to protect the PhD. We will not dumb down the doctorate. Well, if people are just referring to the abstract, that, ladies and gentlemen, is dumbing down the doctorate. So basically, PhD students have demonstrated no ability with non-published and original data, no understanding of the open access movement, because all the attention in life, this report argues, all the attention in academic life is on citation. So we're of an age now where everything that's important in academic life is about citation. We value what has been cited. And that explains the movement to refereed articles and away from primary data. Now, we've got a lot of problems in international doctoral education at the moment, a lot. And one person and one vlog can't fix it. These challenges are going to take many years to address, systemic change. But today I'm going to solve one problem for you, and that is the fear of open access journals, because supposedly they're about predatory publishing. We're going to handle that today. Let's do this project. Now let's start with a definition of predatory publishing. And I know it'll come as a surprise to you, but the definition is also a bit volatile as well. The basic definition that most people can agree with is it refers to the exploitation or victimization of readers or authors for personal or professional gain. The challenge comes in the definition when trying to understand the relationship between predatory publication and the open access movement. What's occurred is those two phrases have bizarrely become confused. Please remember, predatory publication can exist everywhere, not just in the open access movement, everywhere. And let me give you one example. Okay, early on in my career, I was a B-level academic, very young in my career. I once produced a book for an Australian university press. And you hear people go on and on, oh yes, I publish in the university press. I've published, I think, 4 books in university presses, and most of them have been pretty diabolical experiences. But let me tell you about the first time I published with a university press. The book had gone through refereeing. 4 referees said it was one of the greatest books they've ever read, a great contribution to the field. I had an email that said it had been accepted for publication and the contract was pending. Fantastic, doing well. But 1 week before Christmas, while every day I'm waiting for the contract to arrive, on a Friday afternoon, and clearly after several Chardonnays, the editor of this particular university press emailed me and said if she was going to give me that contract, I would have to write the press out a cheque for $2,000. An Australian university press. Now, I fought that. I fought it hard. It was dreadful. I remember how sick I felt, how horrendous, how corrupt, how awful. And I fought it and I won. But that was a university press. So don't for one moment think that the word predatory only applies to the open access movement. Remember the study that I referred you guys to last week, conducted by the Directory of Open Access Journals. They confirmed in their study in 2013 that 67% of open access journals do not require any fee, any payment of any kind from readers or authors. That's over 2/3. So whenever you go, oh, open access requires fees and money, the overwhelming majority don't. And also then, think about commercial publishers. Think about that adjective, commercial. They're in it to make money. They require high subscriptions from universities, from libraries, and from individual researchers. But for some reason, well, the reason I'm going to talk about in a moment, predatory at the moment as an adjective is only applying to the open access movement. And that is bizarre to me because it's the least exploitive mode of publishing. Isn't this bizarre? So for me, this is Orwellian in the really 1984 sense of the word. War is peace, open access is predatory. It's not. And one of the reasons we've got this bizarre Orwellian connection taking place, you can see when you look at the font of all knowledge, really not, Wikipedia. You go to the open access entry for Wikipedia and the first sentence links it with predatory publications. Now, that shows to me, Wikipedia is just wrong. Never assume that consensus is actually where knowledge is at, guys. So Wikipedia is wrong a lot of the time. It's certainly wrong in open access. And of course, they've got a citation in there. They're citing a particular person that links up predatory and open access. And we're going to get to that one man and that reference next. Where does this Orwellian sleight of hand take place? And the answer is one man. Geoffrey Beall and his Beall's list. Now, when I wrote this vlog for this week, I really thought about whether or not I should even mention this guy. You know, he's got enough profile, enough publicity from this really dreadful thing that he's doing for the planet. Why should I mention him further? But you guys have a right to hear what he is doing and make your own mind up about it. So if in an interview you get asked a question about this, at least you have some context around it. So Geoffrey Beall is a librarian and an academic at the University of Colorado, and he created the phrase predatory publishing and the Beall's list, the predatory publishing list, in 2010. The reason he created this list is he was responding to a series of emails that he was receiving daily from supposed journals and journal editors promising that he could get a publication. Now, to be frank with you, like most of us, I probably get 5 of those emails a day. Most of them end up in junk. Most of them end up in clutter. I just simply delete them. If Microsoft is calling it junk, well, team, hello, it's junk. But anyway, saying that these emails are like anything remotely significant or important is like describing all banks, every single bank, as problematic, because every now and again we get those emails from Nigeria that supposedly state a long lost relation has died, and if we give them our bank account number, then they'll simply pass millions of dollars to us. Now, we don't judge the entirety of banking on the basis of those Nigerian emails. So why should we be abusing all open access journals on the basis of a few random emails that end up in junk anyway? And bottom line, there are corrupt and nasty people around the world. Those corrupt and nasty people are in banking, they are in publishing, they are in academic life, and even they are in politics. But we don't judge our daily life on the basis of those few corrupt, nasty people. Think about it, team. You get a random email from a random person promising publication. Oh, and by the way, could you give us $200? Or 2,000 euros, like, we've never read your work before, we've misspelt your name, but hey, how about you take us seriously? Now guys, this is not a big problem. Really, it's not a big problem, but it is a big problem for this guy, Jeffrey Beall. He has configured his own criteria by which he evaluates publishers, and he lists those publishers that he believes to be predatory, and also, and it's very good of him, he also has an appeal process where the publishers can actually work against and respond to their listing in his Beall's list. Isn't that good of him? Now, he is just some guy, okay? And he's pumped himself up through using this phrase, predatory publishing. And he's placed all the attention on non-corporate, non-commercial, open access journals. Basically, he has let all commercial journals and publishers completely off the leash. But it gets worse. Beall has also attacked the publishers and the authors and the editors in the nations in Asia and Africa. So isn't that convenient? Just as the universities and the scholars in the African and Asian natures are moving on up through the international rankings, Jeffrey Beall suddenly decides, oh yes, all the bad publishing that exists in the world happens in those major bits of this planet. That's a bit too convenient for me. So what we're doing is those commercial publishers in Europe and North America, they're absolutely fine. No problems at all, not predatory, not an issue. But open access in Africa and Asia, oh my goodness me, that is a major problem. Now the key is, how is this one guy making judgments? How is he doing this? Well, one of the great critics of the Beall's list is a great scholar called Walt Crawford. Now what Walt Crawford did is, like the best of researchers, he said, look, okay, so there's this list. Let me do what the best of researchers do and check repeatability. So let's use his own criteria from Beall's list, and let's then assess those journals again. Somebody else tries to repeat what he's done. So he did that, and then he found repeatability was not possible. The Beall's list had too much ambiguity, too much inconsistency to actually make a judgment. Full stop. Instead, he recommended that those of us who are researchers use the directory of open access journals to assess the value and validate our journals. Now, the directory of open access journals have taken up this challenge. That's terrific. So while Beall created his blacklist, the directory of open access has configured their whitelist. Use the whitelist. So Lars Bjorthage, editor of the directory of open access journals, confirmed that he believed only 1% of articles in open access journals are questionable in terms of peer review or quality. Think about that. 1% of articles he believes are remotely questionable. Now pick any journal and you're going to find a lot more than 1% of journals well dodgy. So how are we going to avoid predatory publications? What advice can I give you without looking at that Beall's list to say, right, if something happens, how do you evaluate a journal? Well, team, it's really, really easy. Let me give this to you quickly. 1, be wary of unsolicited emails promising publication. If some hashtag random emails you and says, publish with us, like, don't. Really, just don't. Okay, just delete. I delete about 5 or 6 of those a day. You need to do the same. Boom, problem over. If you think there might be something good and useful there, then check the publishers of the journal that they have an actual physical address rather than just a virtual or an email address. Okay, so go to the website, check for a physical address. That's often a sign. 3, this is important, check the fee policy at the start of the process. Now, some journals do charge fees. I've written 20 books, 200 plus refereed articles. I've never paid. I've never ever paid. But say you want to pay and the journal pays, then check it. Talk to me about the fee process, and most importantly, talk to our wonderful librarians. Just ask them to check. See what they think about the fee schedule and whether or not it's actually, inverted commas, legitimate. 4, very important, verify the peer review process. I put my life on peer review. Peer review is everything to what academic life is about. So check that peer review is in place, and double blind peer review is the gold standard. Double blind peer review, look for that. 5, most importantly, check that the journal is listed in the directory of open access journals. Very important. When I'm looking for an outlet for my articles, I don't go generally into Google or Google Scholar and just sort of look for something in the area. I start with the directory of open access journals. So I know every journal that I'm assessing to where I could put my research is fine because it's in the directory of open access journals. So go there first. 6, read some articles in the journal. I do this a lot. So read those articles. Do they look strong? Do they look interesting? See if your work would nest in with those other articles. 7, so important, watch copyright. Really, really big. This is important for all journals. I want you to read the contract. You will invariably get a statement, some form of contract from a publisher talking about what happens to your words and your rights over your words. Read that contract and be really, really clear. Because guys, when we write for the future. We don't always know where our words are going to end up. And 3 of the articles I've written have become books. Okay, so an article that was so ahead of the game, working in a really interdisciplinary area, became a book. So if you've lost the right to that key article that is the seed for a much bigger research project, then you're in trouble. So really watch copyright and really watch Creative Commons licenses. Again, if you need advice, talk to me, talk to our wonderful librarians. 8, verify the editorial board. Have a good look at the editorial board, and if it says editorial board coming soon, step away from the vehicle. 9, check the quality of the website. So go there, look, if it looks unprofessional, it probably is. Okay, so do monitor that. Having said that, it is important that none of us are racist or xenophobic. A lot of our colleagues in languages all around the world are operating in English as their second or their third language. So don't be xenophobic, look for a professional website, but just recognise that English is a second or third language for a lot of people. It's a very tough language, so don't be xenophobic when you're assessing that website. 10, and this is an important one, look for any sense of a disconnect between the title of the journal and the article content in that journal. So make sure it is a nested project. Here is the title, here are the articles, and they talk to each other. Boom. So as you can see, we have no reason to be reliant on the Beall's list at all. Use the directory of open access journals. Use also the Open Access Scholarly Publishers Association. They're starting to get a lot more visibility and starting to regulate the open access space. Fantastic. I'd also say to you once more, as I always try and do, please value and validate the expertise of librarians. We have amazing, fantastic librarians at Flinders, and some of my best friends on planet Earth are amazing librarians around our entire planet in universities around the world. You are amazing people. I love you guys. But librarians are the expert in information literacy. Please use their expertise. Any question, talk to a librarian. They will help you through this issue. And finally, let me really state with clarity, the most dreadful behaviour that I have ever seen as an academic and as an academic writer has been from commercial publishers. Think about the biggest names in publishing. I've published with them. The biggest names in publishing. Those men and women have changed the rules of publishing on the way through while I'm actually moving to publication. They've made me jump through multiple hoops. They've changed the number of referees that are required for different articles and books. They ask for money and they lie. They also show profound sexism, racism and homophobia. To give you one example, a lot of you know I work in the field of sport, sports studies and leisure. I produced a relatively well-known book on sport, and the challenges I had going through to get that book published, I can never convey to you. I had 10 referees. They kept adding referees to the process because they just couldn't believe that actually this book was any good because I was a woman writing in sport. Okay, so just ponder that, okay? Just ponder that. If we're talking about predatory natures, think about what's occurring in the commercial capitalist publishing space at the moment. It's not pretty. And in all my open access career, every single journal article that I've produced in open access journals, I have never seen anything except professionalism, integrity, reflexivity, and kindness. So whenever the phrase predatory publishers is being used at you, please remember this vlog. Ask questions. Don't rely on the opinion of one man in the United States. Go to the directory of open access journals. Believe in regulation, believe in scholarship, and yes, believe in refereeing. I hope this has been a useful session to you. As you can see, it's something that's very close to my heart. This is a big deal for me. And I wish you all, as always, love, light, and peace. Tia.